So today I want to do this quick study on how to convey metal surface using charcoal. So today I've taped off a drawing that I have rendered the line aspect of it. I'm going to be using broad charcoal, charcoal pencil in 6B, my white charcoal pencil, some tortillons or blending stubs, eraser, and I'm using the Strathmore grayscale paper pad. Now this paper is very highly textured, and when I work in studies, textured paper doesn't bother me, but if I was going to do a very refined drawing, I would have probably used a charcoal paper that was a lot smoother. For step 1, you want to do a basic line drawing. Now, if you're not sure how to draw ellipses or circles in perspective, go ahead and check out the video I've made on circle in perspective. It'll give you a nice basic guideline on where to begin. So step 2, I like to convey all of my shapes through a line. In step 3, I'm going to establish the negative space, everything that's surrounding the object. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I build up the surface. Now I'm using the broad side of the charcoal and I'm blending it out with my blending stub. I'm also going to use my eraser to soften the marks as well. Now I'm going to use my blending stub as a drawing tool as well to convey the value in certain areas. So I'm going back and forth with blending stub, an eraser, and my charcoal pencil. Now any lines that I make at this point, I'm going to want to soften with my eraser or my blending stub. And I'm going to keep going until I have established my background. Okay, so that's step 3. Now let's do step 4. Okay, so in step 4, I'm going to want to start to establish my dark darks. And I'm going to want to remember that I'm working on a toned paper, so that mid-tone is already present. Before I get started with step 4, I do want to suggest that you use a cover page, just a little piece of paper to rest your hand on so that when you are moving around, you're not getting a really dirty wrist or side of your hand, which could eventually smudge and potentially mess up your drawing. Okay, so I'm going to use my 6B charcoal pencil and I'm going to start establishing the dark areas of this metal vase. Now, I'm going to utilize the shapes that I drew out in line as almost like a pattern, or you can think about it as like coloring book page, right? You're filling in the shapes that you have drawn out. And as I do this, I'm going to go back and forth with my charcoal pencil and my blending stub, or sometimes it's called tortillon, and I'm going to go back and forth to blend it, and I'm building up the charcoal surface. for step 5, I'm going to start using my white charcoal / pastel pencil and render the highlights. Because I've done that prep, that step 2, where I'm establishing the shapes within the form, I've got my guideline. I know where to put my highlights in the very beginning. So it's worth doing the steps of really outlining the shadows and the shapes before you start the whole rendering process. So here I've got my white pastel, my white charcoal pencil, and I'm kind of going over the dark areas to kind of soften them, to give them a little bit more of a metallic feel. So if you find that your white pastel charcoal pencil is getting dirty, just wipe it away on your cover sheet and go back to producing your highlights. So as I am establishing my dark areas in step previous and my highlights or my brightest areas in this step, I want to make sure that I'm still working with the gray paper, the toned paper. That's going to be my mid-tone. And I'm going to really utilize that as part of the drawing, as part of the tone of the overall rendering. So don't completely cover it up with charcoal. Really utilize it as part of your value scale. You can always push a drawing, even a study, further. So I would encourage you to keep going, really establish those lights and darks, even in a stronger sort of way. Make sure that you're rendering everything to its fullest potential. If I'm looking at it right now, I can see that the base still is underdeveloped. And also allow yourself to make some corrections within the shape of the object that you're drawing if it does need some corrections. Okay, so this is refinement stage. This is time to make any final corrections, really finish conveying the fully rendered form that you feel like you need to establish as the artist, and really give it that finished overall feel. So just to review everything, you're going to first establish a line drawing. Then you're going to establish the shapes within the line drawing. These are going to be your highlights and your lowlights. Then you're going to work your background, and this is really going to focus on your positive shape and your negative space and what that means in your observation. Then you're going to focus on establishing the shapes within the form. Now this is going to start to develop and build up, using your lights and darks, the metal surface, because the metal surface is reflecting the light. So the more shapes and fragmentation you have, the more realistic it's going to seem. You're going to go back and forth and refine your object, your observation that you're drawing, until you get to a point where you feel like it's completely rendered and done. Okay, I hope this helps you in understanding how to render metal surfaces using charcoal and toned paper. Until next time.